for us, it's been a liberation. It's been being back, being an independent label again, doing independent label things. And I think that's the case with many independent labels, that you have a certain love and a certain specialty in the company, and that's when you hear something that triggers your ear, that's when you go after it.
The fault line's about to blow, and the devil is at my throat. Paved with good intentions, don't you know?
My name is Ed van Zijl. I'm the owner, founder of Mascot Records, a Dutch independent record company, specialized in guitar and rock music. My first love has always been, let's say, car racing. So I wanted to be a race car driver. But at that time there were still many accidents, so at home I could not transfer that into reality. And my second love had always been the music industry. I don't know why. I think it's because we had music programs on TV. You know, like you had in the UK, Top of the Pops, and we had Top Pop, and all the artists came there. And I think at that time, everything that you heard was new. Sometimes now you have retro, you know, sounds like they go back to the 60s or the 70s or the 80s, but at that time everything was new. So I'm highly interested in original bands. You know, when you hear 2 or 3 notes, you know, you know, and I think that kind of the connection to radio was very strong here. So we had some really cool radio stations focused on youth, like you had From the Sea, Radio Veronica. You had some pirates. So I think that the whole kind of pirate thing is a romantic thing to think about, and that's something that I could transfer into reality. I started the company when it was 92. 92, there just been a recession. So here I was, you know, with a couple of releases, and you go to distributors and they said like, well, one of the responses was like, we need a new label like we need a hole in the head. Yeah, okay. So I had to, you know, start down and started with the wholesale company that I initially worked for. Was not my first distributor. They did my very first record, which was something different in 1990, when Case allowed me to do a record independently if he would have the option on the next record. So I put that record out. It was more kind of an English pop band called To the Fountain. We had a little radio success here, but you know, I had to do my job and pay the house and everything that I did. So it was kind of an experiment, but it kind of fired up the you know, the feeling that was inside me. And at some point I decided to go, you know, start my own label, and then my distribution initially went through PS, played against them in Benelux. That's how we started, and from there we went to some other ones, you know, so more small independent distribution companies, because there were so many metal labels at the time. And I was in the Netherlands, and all those bands were in America, and I was alone. So I decided to use my network and get into contact with people I knew in the industry, and we kind of developed from metal to a more guitar specialized label. So we did jazz things, instrumental guitar, blues things, and I think that's how we developed to where we are now. So, and I think the step to America we took initially in the early 2000s. That was a mistake, because you're way too far from the people that work over there. You don't understand the market. It's very different. It's very big, and obviously you had chain stores like Musicland or Tower Records that would have 12, 1,300 stores. How can you do this as an independent label? You just cannot. And Europe has always been a small, contained market. You know, you can work in Germany, it's overseeable, and you speak the language, right? And you can work in the UK, so you can oversee everything, and it's a workable market. So I think our whole development went into specialization in Europe, so we could be, you know, if you had a band in America on an American label, and we could be their European label, and that's how we developed. That's how Joe Bonamassa, how we developed him. A Walter Trout, who was already on a Provoke label, which we late in the 90s bought. We kind of developed a specialization. So Europe and guitar flavored music. And once we kept on growing, We kind of opened offices in various countries, and then we went to America again in a different setup and made sure that we had artists that actually could, tour over there and be on radio, and when we had a little bit more development. And now I think America is about half of what we are.
I'm breaking down and I need some room to breathe. Oh, 'cause the weight of this is
I love great guitarists. I just love the guys that can do that only a few people in the world can do. So the moment I hear it or think hearing it, that's when we move. But by growing as a company, you get different styles, you get different labels. Like we have a blues label called Provoke, which is blues flavored. Right? And then we have a label called Mascot, which has been the initial label, which is a hard rock label. But when you grow, you start thinking in different ways. Like our Mascot brand in the US, we're active on active rock radio. It kind of needs to suit, the let's say the checklist that we set out. Like, management, good booking agents. It needs to fit on a certain radio format. If in America you don't fit the radio format, you kind of lose. That's all in mind right now. So if I hear something that I really like a lot, we might not sign it because others in the company go like, let's not do this. It's not cool, or it doesn't fit on radio here, or what. So you make concessions. While in the beginning, and I think that's the case with many independent labels, that you have a certain love and a certain specialty in the company, and that's when you hear something that triggers your ear, that's when you go after it. When you hear original bands or bands that are opening up new alleys or just, entering new territory, which has always been a very, very interesting thing to do. Some things are too early, and some things are too late. But I think as an independent label, you have a specialty, and once you grow, it just becomes less of a red thread, because it's an industry, right? And it's a market, and it would be very weird if we would sign in a hip hop act tomorrow, because we probably don't know how to handle it, right? I might love it, because I love hip hop too. I might love it, but we couldn't sign it because it doesn't fit. We might talk about, as you do in everything, like old world, new world, right? And in the old world, you would have a system whereby you use your media channels, the printed magazines, the photo shoots, the image building, the touring. Everybody got his information through those magazines, so you focused on those. And then you need to make sure that you had a distributor that could basically, fill the stores with the records that you were releasing. So you needed a strong distributor. From an independent distributor, you wanted to be with a big one, because they would have more power in stores. Gone. It's completely unimportant, right? Because our biggest customer is Amazon on the physical side. That whole distribution power has just changed. Now you have to make sure that they can supply certain specialty stores. The whole media has changed. So magazines, radio, TV, it's all very, very important. But our experience at the moment is that, the social media side is just leading. Discussions we have in the company right now is we cannot see an effect from radio on our streaming. And we cannot see an effect from radio on our physical either. I don't know. I think if you're very high in charts, probably if you're top 10 or top 5, you're going to see it. At least in the arena we work in, right? In the rock arena. But it's the social media. If that's in order, and if the band is original and got good songs, because on the streaming platforms, it's all about the songs. You can have a band that makes a huge turnover, and if you analyze it later on, you see from the 200 songs that they have, there might be 3 or 4 songs bringing 80% of the total turnover. And that all changed. So, but it keeps you young, right? Because if things stay the same, you fall asleep. Fuga to me is independent, because I was telling you a little earlier about when you were in the physical world and you were at small distributors, and then it was important. I felt it important to be with bigger distributors who have a wider reach to more stores. And then when digital came up, and we were late on the digital side, developing. And then we work with major label in digital, right? And then you learn. In the old world, you could have control, because I could call the journalist. I can still call journalists I know for years and get a favor, right? You would have lines, for yourself, and then suddenly on the digital side, your hands are tied. We were with a major label, and you're way behind, all right? They do absolutely nothing for the percentage, and that felt horrible. That felt absolutely horrible. And when we changed, when our distribution contract was up, we looked at the options, and then we went to another. Initially, there were a few parties, and then we were in conversation with another major label, and in the conversation, there's suddenly, there's 13 people from the major label coming online, and they talk to you, to your team, or to my team in America, like, hey, how are you? How are you? How are you? Then they all know each other, and then I asked a question. I said, okay, out of these 13 people, who are our label managers? Oh, that's her. Yeah, is she America or is she Europe or she's all? And at that moment it was like, nope, been there, done that, got the T-shirt, not gonna do that. And then we looked at our options, and Fuga to us felt like independence, right? So we feel way more in control what we do. We can develop as a digital team. Right, we've hired people, develop our digital team, and I think the whole balance of working together with Fuga is for us, a very powerful and independent situation. We feel extremely happy and free in it, and at the same time, it's serious. So we can reach and be everywhere, and I think we work together really well. For us, it's been a liberation. It's been being back, being an independent label again, doing independent label things. As an independent label, the way I look at it, we have a present and we have a future, but we also have a past, right? And I think that whole past, if I look at it, if you run an independent label in between four walls and behind a desk, and you get all, your daily stuff on your desk, good or bad, you don't feel what you're doing. And I think not so long ago I was reading an article, I believe in a German trade magazine, about my label. From maybe 20 years ago till now, and I read it and I went like, wow, that's my life. And then it looks nice. It always looked nice from the outside, like, oh yeah, we work with this artist, we work with that artist and that artist and that artist. But it's a business, right? There's nothing else like if you sell groceries or if you sell oil or if you sell whatever, it's a business. But there's an emotional attachment to it. And I think a lot of independent label owners have an emotional attachment to the artist. And I think once it's big enough in the industry, there's no emotional attachment anymore. It's like it's business, it's money.